What's up? How y'all doing? I'm still spinning. I thought I was gonna stop. Hey. What's up, you guys? I'm fucking avoiding shit. So let me just tell you a little background to this. I wanted to jump on here and talk to y'all about an epiphany that I had about me avoiding my feelings. And I've recorded this already a few times where I either stop the video because I want to play with the background behind me, or I'm spinning in this chair. I'm like doing different cuts because I'm like, that wasn't right. I didn't say that right. Whatever it is, I don't want to talk about the thing that I need to talk about with y'all. And that's kind of a new realization for me. Essentially, my life kind of went up in flames 2.5 years ago. And by flames, I mean like, it could have been worse. But I try not to use that language because everyone, like, yeah. Point being is that as somebody who is living with attachment issues, like deep-rooted attachment issues, deep-rooted complex PTSD, deep-rooted, or complex trauma rather, deep-rooted all of those issues, like relating to people and attaching and staying, like all of that shit. 2 years ago, everything kind of just blew up in my face. I really don't want to talk about this. Before I tell you what happened 2 years ago, I'm gonna give you a very brief context as to why what happened 2 years ago is significant for me. I've already kind of talked about my attachment issues or whatever, sort of. I just said I have attachment issues, but why do I have attachment issues? My mother and father were not around when I was a kid. They were around, but they weren't around. And I have a whole nother video on like what I mean by that. But essentially, like when I was born, number one, my mom didn't know I was born. And she was just basically in and out of my life, my birth mom. And you know how most kids, when they're born, they go home with mom and dad. Number one, I stayed in the hospital. Number two, for a while, because my mom was sick. And number two, I don't know the fucking full story about where I was or where I went to and who had me and who didn't. I was always like safe. I was always safe because I was always with family. But the point being is that like, I wasn't going home with mom and dad. My dad said he didn't see me until like 1998, like in person until 1998. I was born in 96. So like that was always a real doozy, kind of like where the fuck were you? I mean like he was around financially sending money to help out. Like he was talking on the phone with people. Like he was there, but he wasn't there. I lived with my grandmother, my mom. I lived with my brother apparently. My brother just told me that I was with him. I was with aunts and uncles. Like I don't really fucking know, but from the age of 0 to 4, I was with a lot of different people. My family, although everyone seems to have different fucking narratives, like literally you ask my dad, it's a different narrative. When my birth mom was alive, it was a different narrative. You ask my aunt, it's a different narrative. You ask people and then we get a different story. And my dad quite literally even said to me that he was like, I don't remember exactly the timeline. And that right there is the only proof I feel like I need as to describe as to why I have trouble attaching. My father does not know where I was concretely between the ages of 0 and 4 at all times. Like he can't recall it. And it's partially because yes, he's old and his memory is probably not there. But also most kids don't have, like their parents don't have to think about like, where was my child? My child was with me, the fuck? So let me just speed this context along because I tend to ramble. Throughout childhood, after that, not only, like I had a stable, and I say stable, I don't mean like anything before this was unsafe, but stable as in like I'm not moving from household to household. I lived with my aunt and uncle, but I grew up with the fear that I could always be snatched away. Now, snatched away sounds like a bad term in terms of like being unsafe. I don't mean unsafe in any of this, but snatched away in the sense that I was in the middle of a custody battle between my birth father and my aunt/legal guardian, and at the time, my birth mother, who wanted me to stay with her. So it was this idea from after 0 to 4, because that's when I went to go live with my aunt, and she became my legal guardian. From 4 to 13, this idea that like, I might have to leave at any second or any moment. And it wouldn't be terrible because I would be going with my father, but my way of life, my way of everything, like everything would just change. And the younger I was throughout that timeline, like from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it was more of like a disastrous tone that was given throughout the family. Like it was like, don't do these things, don't act up, blah, 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 because you can get taken away from us. On top of the custody battle, my birth mother, again, was in and out of my life quite literally. So while the custody battle kind of involved her, my aunt was my legal guardian for a reason. And that's because my mom would come in and out of my life quite literally. She had her own problems, she had her own issues, she had her own mental health issues, hence why I had a legal guardianship. But it would be like, hi mom, and it would be normal, and she would have her own place, her own apartment for 1 year. I would go stay with her on the weekends, we would go to the zoo, we would do like normal things, right? And then like one day, you know, she would say she's gonna come pick me up from school or come do this with me or whatever it is, and she just wouldn't show up. And then you'd call her. First day, she just wouldn't answer. The second day, the phone would be cut off. And then like, you would just have no idea if you're gonna see her next week, in 2 weeks, or this one time, you know, you don't know if you're gonna see her for 1.5 years. Like, poof. And that was a continuous thing basically until she passed away. Again, she had her own issues, she had her own problems, but as a kid who, you know, was born into an environment without a mother and father, or rather without the normal parental supports there, and then living in a household where theoretically you could be snatched out of it any moment. And then also at the same time, you do have a parent there, your birth mom is there, and you do know that she loves you, but she like, you just never know when you're gonna see her again, or when she leaves, like quite literally, you might not see her again for a minute. And that happened, when I say it happened so often, it happened so often. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. There's a lot more. But I think that y'all get the point that I have attachment issues, right? So 2 years ago, after a lot of healing, after a lot of self-soothing, or like just having done a lot of work on myself from the age of like 18 to 23, going through college, becoming an adult, like that whole growth combined with like the growth that most people don't have like therapeutically because I was diagnosed with bipolar, all that jazz. I did a lot of growing. Things kind of like life happened essentially. Not backslided or nothing, life happened. And that was something I wasn't really ready for because I was living in a bubble. A very safe, protective bubble. Number one, college was the bubble. Like, it's college. I'm protected in a lot of different ways. Number two, I just was kind of living in this utopian fantasy that people are always, like, I gave into the idea that people will be there for me, but always be there for me. And I guess that's a little bit too hard for me to explain. I don't really know how to explain it. But the point is that my great aunt Laura died. Rest in peace to her. My grandmother died. Rest in peace to her. My godmom technically died. We hadn't like talked in a while, but a lot of freaking memories came up from childhood with her, and I loved her, whatever. But not whatever. But my godmother died. I got broken up with after a 2-year relationship. Sorry, not really broken up with. I got ghosted essentially. Well, they broke up with me, but we were still together and still talking. And I know this because I don't go in my iCloud anymore, but I used to be able to tell from my iCloud pictures of us that like after the conversation of us breaking up, we were still together for like a decent week or two, like doing things, blah, 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 trying to repair things as we had agreed to. And then they just kind of ghosted. Didn't know that they kind of just decided like, well, I'm going to just follow suit with this. No conversation, no nothing, until like a month later, they informed me that they're dating somebody else and that they don't want to talk to me anymore. So that 2-year relationship ended. My job changed dramatically overnight. When I say overnight, quite literally, I was in a Uber on my way to Austin, Texas, got a phone call and they were like, yeah, when you get back on Monday, you're going to be doing something completely different, which is fine. Actually, that's kind of what my job is expected to do. Like, I know that's a possibility. But given everything else that had been happening, and when I say everything else that had been happening, all of this was within months of each other, y'all. Like, it's not like it was spread out. Oh, wait. In between people dying and me getting broken up with, my best friend of 9 years also ghosts me. He ghosts everybody, mostly everybody. But that's a whole nother topic that I have not been ready to talk about. But essentially, all these people started leaving, and I had all these losses. The job was a loss. I had to learn. I'm not working at that job right now, but theoretically, I was put in an environment where I would have to learn computer software online when you're actually supposed to be learning it in person in India with somebody. Like, you're supposed to be doing it in person as a class. No. COVID happened. So I was doing it online with, like, obviously all these other things happening. My grandmother passed away. I got dumped or ghosted and then dumped because they did reach out to me, but then I just told y'all. All this shit was happening. And I didn't know how to deal with it, y'all. Like, I do remember it being hard. I remember being manic as fuck. I remember being, like, out of my mind. And I do remember that part because I literally went into treatment and I, like, took time off of work. I'm still not back to work. Like, disability, all that stuff was done. I recognized that. But what I did not recognize is that ever since then, I've shut down essentially how I used to as a kid, but just in a different way. Like, I have not really grieved properly. Not properly, there's not like a way to do it, but we've been avoiding all of that. Like, I don't want to feel that. Like, I have not really talked about my best friend who, when I say ghosted me, he like just fell off the face of the earth. For like, I knew him for 9 years and we had no beef, no nothing, no blah, 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 blah. We talked almost every single day. We didn't go to the same college and we still talked almost every single day. I had just seen them like a few months beforehand and just poof, it's like this person died. And honestly, with everything happening, I didn't want to deal with any of that, like any of those feelings, bro. I think that when I got broken up with, like my romantic relationship or whatever, I do remember feeling that intensely. I remember feeling like I had panic attacks again. It felt like I was dying. Obviously, I'm not dying, but like I couldn't deal. And I'm afraid that if I admit that and I talk about that on here and I talk about how it all makes me feel, like my best friend of 9 years ghosted me and I'm a mental health advocate, and with everything that I tell y'all on here, I have not talked about that, bro. Like, come on now. I'm avoiding these hard feelings as fuck. I do not want to talk about any of this shit because I don't want to be sad. Because sadness brings depression, and I've been depressed. I've had a suicide attempt. I've done that. I was depressed for the majority of my childhood. I'm not going back. I am not going because like that shit sucks. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. We're not gonna delve deeper into those subjects or anything, but it's something that I've come to a realization. I forgot what triggered it exactly, but people, I think, were asking me even like, what are you running from? And I'm running from all the negative feelings. If anything feels negative, I'm gone. And that's been with my relationships recently. Like, when I say recently, I mean past 2-3 years. But if it's relationships that I feel negative, I just don't ask questions. Like, this whole idea that I'm indirect and like I'm not like, I'm one of the most direct people in the world. Or at least I used to be. I would not hold things in. I would not keep things in my mind because that's where anxiety festers and that's where overthinking happens, and I hate that. So I quite literally 3 years ago would just ask the person. And that's because I was taught that if you ask them and they answer you, just take their answer and don't overthink it, believe them, and that's your work. And then I encountered gaslighting and liars. So, of course we stopped asking like and wanting to know questions. I don't ask questions in relationships. I beat around the bush. I am very indirect now, apparently. Not apparently, like people have told me this, but I see that I'm indirect because that's how you get your feelings hurt. Like, why would I want to ask something, even if it's burning on my mind and even if it's like killing me inside? Why would I want to ask something or figure out the answer to something that I don't want to know the answer to? And that's where my mind goes. And that kind of goes within the theme of like, I don't want to feel anything bad. I don't want to feel any bad thoughts. I don't want to feel any bad feelings. I don't want to be sad. I just don't want any. I don't want any of it. And it's gotten so bad that it's gotten down to like dropping the ball on like adulting life stuff. Just what's an example? Like Financial stresses, not dealing with it, just being like, well, I'm not gonna deal with it because there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm gonna just not deal with it. So I'm just gonna like not deal with it. And that's like, you can't live life like that, because the reasons why I'm stressed now is because there's all these volcanoes that I have not put out, all these fires that I have not put out. They're not erupting, they're just like slowly burning around me. But I'm just like, I don't wanna deal with them. So like, because if I deal with them, it means I have to face the fears of dealing with them, and I don't wanna do that. So now y'all know. Now y'all know what my epiphany was. So this month is gonna be about confronting those fears, because I need to, and I am hoping to, and I need to do a push. I started doing some healing after the little incident that happened 2 years ago, but I need to continue to push, because right now it feels like I'm just like in the water, and I'm paddling and I'm paddling and I'm paddling, but I'm not going anywhere. And that is beginning to suck. That's not only beginning to suck, but I also can't continue to ignore that. No matter how much I want to. Well, I could, but the alternative, or rather the consequences of doing that, aren't like, they're like real bad, y'all, like real bad. Legally, financially, health-wise, like life and death. It's life and death. Very, very long life and death. I'm not gonna like die next month, but yeah, it's bad. Oh shit, bitch. All right, y'all. That's all I've got for this video, but stay tuned, obviously, for more. And I'm ready to dive deep into this bitch and get my healing on. Not really. Peace.